In 2022, we are living in an ever-connected world. Technology provides connections to not only the people around us, but allows us to manage our assets, our cars, our finances, and our homes. This increasing connection prompts an increase in the use of automation technology and innovation to electronic hardware device communication standards. Home smart devices like light switches, light bulbs, alarm systems, HVACs, door locks, and security cameras all exist to increase either home security or efficiency. My name's Caleb Rivera. Join me on a journey in discovering the magical wireless innovations of smart home devices through the lens of cybersecurity. That Wi-Fi box in your house that all of your computers and phones connect to over the air is also the same physical hardware that most smart home devices use wirelessly today. This is the most common way that smart home users send commands or how a smart thermostat communicates the current temperature with the homeowner. The IEEE, or the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, regulates and defines how these invisible wireless waves work to transfer data in the form of ones and zeros. The technical term for Wi-Fi is an IEEE standard better known by its name, 802.11. In any 802.11 or Wi-Fi context, malicious people like hackers or snoopy tech-savvy neighbors can monitor device activity, violating you, the homeowner, or your occupant's privacy. By privacy, I mean that this monitoring possibly indicates whether there is anyone home or even discloses specific activities occurring within a home. This monitoring threat exists because smart home devices, motion sensors, light switches, and even air conditioning devices all communicate on the same Wi-Fi channel, and this activity collectively indicates if a user is at home and, depending on the device, what activity the user is doing at that moment. I'm not telling this to you to scare you away from using smart home devices. Their automation capabilities provide serious convenience to you as a homeowner or occupant. What I am saying is that their current mechanism of communication within a house needs to be innovated, revised, and updated. Privacy within a traditional Wi-Fi network is referred to as the encryption and authentication mechanisms of the wireless transmissions occurring. By encryption, I mean the way that data is coded, and by authentication mechanisms, I mean the way in which the system keeps your devices connected and keeps the bad devices or snooping neighbors out. The evolution of smart home technology alters this definition of privacy, demanding that a transmission's presence, the sheer existence of an invisible wave traveling in the air between the devices, have full anonymity and invisibility as to its intention to a hacker. While adaptations of 802.11 like Zigbee, Bluetooth Classic, or BLE exist, all offering connection between smart devices wirelessly, each protocol raises the same previously mentioned privacy concern of anonymity and invisibility. New wireless protocols do not inherently solve the issue of privacy within the connected smart home, and ultimately, as new wireless technologies are introduced, a new set of vulnerabilities comes along with each one. Many different brands of devices exist within the smart home, from Philips Hue to Google Nest, each covering different aspects of home automation. Due to this variety, each uses its own connection scheme. By connection scheme, I mean the life cycle of a device's communication from the hardware chip to the cloud, or whatever endpoint it may have. There is no universal cross-brand standard of connection schemes. This variety across devices and brands creates many vectors that hackers or malicious actors can attack through. A popular solution to this is using a smart home hub that all of the devices connect through, separate from a home router or Wi-Fi network. While in theory there is a benefit through the consolidation of platforms through a smart home hub, the coordination of smart home device manufacturers with those of smart home hubs requires a mutual decision to work together, which rarely happens. In this video, I'm looking to address and compare the potential solutions to the problem of privacy within the connected smart home. I'll do this by dividing security and privacy concerns into three different categories: current or commonly used wireless network protocols, key generation or authentication schemes addressing the complex mechanism of authenticating numerous devices securely on the same network or wireless protocol, data storage schemes addressing the need to store private information locally or remotely. Please bear with me in this exploration because I can imagine that some of these terms are over your head. I'll explain them more when we get to their appropriate sections later. As of 2022, the most common wireless network protocols used in connecting smart home devices are Bluetooth Classic, Bluetooth Low Energy, Wi-Fi, Zigbee, or Z-Wave. Bluetooth Classic, or Bluetooth, was organized starting in 1998 and was officially recognized by the IEEE in 2002. Bluetooth has been regularly revised and updated since. Its primary pros in smart home context are its maximum bandwidth of 3 megabits per second, in spite of its lack of requiring separate router hardware like a Wi-Fi setup to establish a connection. This means you could theoretically have a home with no internet but with Bluetooth-enabled smart home devices and still control them wirelessly from your phone. The con with Bluetooth is that it is an incredibly dated wireless protocol, essentially meaning that there's a vast quantity of research around its vulnerability, ranging from hackers executing malicious code remotely to crashing entire Bluetooth-equipped or enabled systems. Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE, is derived from the same IEEE standard that forms Bluetooth Classic. It was first created in 2006. Starting with the cons this time around, BLE has a lower maximum bandwidth than Bluetooth Classic at 1 megabit per second. In the smart home world, bandwidth isn't always as important as energy consumption. BLE is useful in the smart home context because of its low energy consumption, offering up to a 99% reduction from Bluetooth Classic. This means that it can connect and operate devices for up to multiple years at a time on a coin cell battery. Bluetooth Classic only allows for one-to-one connections, whereas BLE allows for many-to-many connections. Zigbee is derived from the same IEEE standard as both BLE and Bluetooth Classic, but it strictly operates in a mesh network context or many-to-many connection scheme. A mesh network is idealistic in a network context where many devices exist in the same ecosystem, but the furthest device in the network away is too far away for a regular point-to-point connection. In a mesh network, the devices all talk to each other, aiding in getting the communication from one end of the network to the other end. Con of Zigbee is that the Zigbee Alliance membership is more costly than the Bluetooth membership required for product manufacturers, topping out at around $105,000 a year for membership dues, whereas Bluetooth tops out around $42,000. The security vulnerabilities are the same between Bluetooth and Zigbee. Z-Wave operates on a significantly lower frequency or spectrum than any Bluetooth-related standard. In today's crowded marketplace, this means lesser interference and thus a greater quality, longer range connection than any Bluetooth device. Being on a lower frequency does mean a lower bandwidth, topping out around 100 kilobytes per second. Z-Wave only operates in a tree topology where devices communicate through one stem back to the master device. Finally, Wi-Fi is an IEEE standard separate from all of the other Bluetooth-related ones. For users with a home internet connection, a Wi-Fi connection may be the best compatible choice for a smart home network. The primary downside to operating a smart home on a Wi-Fi spectrum is the congested channels and limited range. Every device that is connected to a home internet connection wirelessly, either in your home or your neighbors, all use the same invisible airwave space. Also, Wi-Fi does not natively support mesh networks between the devices within the network. Multiple Wi-Fi routers are needed to achieve this. Wi-Fi smart homes typically do not require a smart home hub for external or remote connection, which for the homeowner allows easy access to adjusting the thermostat away from home. In conclusion, around the commonly used wireless protocols or standards, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth offer the most possibly hideable, camouflageable forms of communication when people are trying to listen to your signal. If using Z-Wave, you're communicating on a specialized spectrum, and people can listen specifically for just that spectrum. Within these different wireless communication protocols for a smart home, there are many unique and powerful ways that devices can ultimately generate digital keys and authenticate or give access to a network or group of devices. Also, regardless of the wireless protocol or the way in which data is transmitted from device to device, there are a number of different unique and powerful ways that the data of smart home devices is stored. This data includes things like home automation routines, like grouping multiple actions under one command from a user, the history of device usage. This can range from the power consumption of a device to the previous user settings of the device, like light bulb brightness or dimming setting, or even a thermostat temperature setting. All of this data can be used to make a smart home more energy efficient or accommodate the home occupant's needs. Since the evolution of the wireless protocols previously mentioned, a lot of novel research has been conducted around privacy-preserving key generation, authentication, and data storage schemes. In any wireless network context, private information needs to be kept secret, obscured, or encrypted through the use of digital key. In layman's terms, a gibberish message of random characters is translated to set the thermostat to 70 degrees when decoded with a key. The million-dollar question in this context is, how do devices generate and exchange these keys, basically authenticating each other's identity? Researchers are constantly seeking to answer this question in novel ways, and this next portion will cover some of these new ideas, also known as schemes. We have seen some researchers that simply blaze their own trail, saying that when using standards like Wi-Fi, it is possible to create a communication scheme that addresses the numerous digital messages exchanged within a smart home. They had developed a way essentially to not expose any private information regarding the homeowner or occupants. Since this is in a smart home context, these researchers are always trying to come up with energy-efficient solutions. Traditionally, the Wi-Fi router aids in generating digital keys to secure communications, but there are researchers that say they have developed a way that these keys can be generated by helpers, which is specialized key generation hardware. Researchers have designed this helper hardware to not only be capable of being stored and operated within a home, but also could be stored and operated in the public domain, like on a street telephone pole, and generate keys for the entire street or block. Some other researchers believe that the best way to achieve key generation is by having specialized hardware for all smart home communication, like a smartphone hub separate from the Wi-Fi router. There's a phrase that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you can certainly take old mathematical concepts and apply them to new technology. The Chinese remainder theorem dates back to the 3rd century CE, but in the application of key generation is incredibly lightweight and incredibly secure when used in certain smart home configurations. In a smart home, digital messages, since they're all in the air, could theoretically be spoofed, and the integrity of these messages is some researchers' priority. A popular way of achieving message integrity within the smart home is the use of the blockchain, which is an immutable or unchangeable way to store information, or in this case, proof of the existence and contents of a digital message. Some researchers even go so far as to combine the use of the blockchain with a deep extreme learning machine, or in layman's terms, a form of AI that can identify and then either ignore, remove, or report any malicious digital message activity. This AI has been tested in research environments with a 93% accuracy. IFTTT recently became a paid model, which killed its popularity, and recently new iterations have been researched, including features like anti-tracking and authentication mechanisms specifically tailored for the smart home. Researchers have also creatively found how to tie biometric data to an authentication method for smart homes. While this makes a smart home network incredibly secure, it is infeasible to enter a fingerprint or face scan every time that the homeowner or occupant wants to issue a command. If this biometric information is to be stored, or really any information in the smart home, researchers have been asking, what is the best way to do this? Data storage schemes within the smart home exist to secure any information regarding the smart home and its users. In an attempt to increase energy efficiency, some researchers recommend the use of the same key across communication and storage mechanisms. It's like using the same key for your car and for your house. Convenient, it certainly takes less space in your pocket, but if someone gets a hold of that key, they have access to both. Researchers argue that if smart home data should be stored locally or by a third party. Storing locally ensures privacy by knowing that the data is not shared externally with the third parties, but storing in the cloud ensures a high amount of availability of access to the data. Cloud services are less likely to crash and go down as opposed to a home-based solution. The blockchain has not only authentication benefits in the smart home, previously discussed, but also has benefits of increased integrity of the data stored. Each bit of information encrypted and stored is done in the most secure and most anonymous way. That being said, the blockchain is traditionally not very energy efficient compared to other data storage solutions. In cybersecurity, there are 3 primary objectives: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and together they form the CIA triad. Confidentiality seeks to protect data and preserve its privacy. Integrity seeks to ensure the content of the data and that it is unchanged except by authorization of the owner of the data. And availability seeks to ensure that the data is always accessible. There's always a priority in each of these categories depending on the application of cybersecurity. In the smart home context, confidentiality is incredibly important because the messages that different devices are exchanging should be encrypted, hiding their visibility to an attacker or hacker. Also, the presence of a message should not give away the activities of the homeowner. Integrity is incredibly important because the messages that smart home devices and the homeowner are exchanging should be unchangeable and unmodifiable by an attacker. Finally, availability is incredibly important because if the smart home devices are not more quickly accessible by being smart, then what is the point of a smart home anyway? In layman's terms, Too much of a priority on confidentiality and security means that the devices will take too long to obscure or encrypt information, hurting availability. Too much emphasis on availability means that a smart home may be able to access the smart devices quickly, but there may be security vulnerabilities. These trade-offs continue to work around the CIA triad, and each researcher or group of researchers tries to balance the triad in their objectives, but usually end up emphasizing only one aspect. Every year, every month, and every day, there is and always will be novel research into the application and integration of the old into the new. Cybersecurity research is profoundly important because the goal of cybersecurity is to protect. In home automation, everything is connected, and cybersecurity is only more important to protecting the well-being of our human existence. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I am wrapping up my junior semester at George Mason University with a major and Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity Engineering. This video was for an English multimodal presentation. Thank you again for watching.